Hi everyone, my name is Patrick Akil, and in this episode we cover how to be a great software engineer. So how to go deep into this individual contributor role, and we slice open the topic of LeetCode. Very controversial. Is LeetCode a good thing or a bad thing? Find out. Joining me today is Ilya Pimenov, senior staff engineer over at Miro, and just a great guy in general. So enjoy. I was actually on LinkedIn yesterday and I saw this poll. That's a guy I follow that used to work at Google and has actually quite a good track record. And his question was, if you were to start your career right now and get into software engineering, what position would you probably fill first? Front-end engineer, back-end engineer, full stack or other? And in the other, people were like QA analyst, business analyst, what have you, to transition into software engineering. But the biggest amount of votes, and this was like 2,500 votes, was full stack engineering. And I did not expect that.
Why not?
I don't know, like full stack, really good full stack engineers for me know backend well as front end well. And to start off full stack, it does help you get a complete understanding of how things interact with each other. Yeah. But to start off with that can be a lot, I think.
Well, I mean, I do unconsciously think that most people unconsciously start as full stack engineers because you started some, well, depending like how you start, like you started some computer science or you didn't, or you like, I don't know, had a boot camp or started by yourself, and then you somehow hustle to get a job. And basically what do you do at the job? You just do everything that needs to be done, more or less. You very often do some like Python shop, HTML, and then connect this to some Zapier, or you just make things work together. You glue them together. You're not really good at any particular field. You're like very on the surface of things, but you solve the technical problem of things working together as a product. Essentially, that's a full stack engineer, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe I was very biased because how I got into this, it was not with the traditional computer science background. I had more of a data science background, and I got into a position where people were their consultants, actually from this company, and their task was to educate me and make sure I can do it without them. And they were like, okay, so have you ever done front-end, back-end? I was like, a little bit here and there because we had an exercise in university. And they're like, let's pick one and focus on one to start off with. And I was like, okay, I always liked more of the logic side. So I started with more back-end related things. That's how I got into that until I got to a point where I was comfortable with that. Then I got into this consultancy organization and it was like, okay, we don't really have that many back-end specific projects. We have this project which is more front-end heavy with a little bit of back-end. Do you want to learn? And at that time, I was like, I'll learn everything. I want to learn everything. Still I do. I
think it's a great mindset. I think, if anything, the best thing you can do is to keep that mindset. Like, I've been developing for quite some years. I'm 37 now. I started when I was 17. My second year of university, I joined Sun Microsystems. And I still, every day, feel like I still have so many things to learn. Like, not that they're complicated or whatnot, but they're just like I lack exposure and I want to be more exposed because I want to continue to be relevant, to be able to not just manage things, but also work together with the people. It continuously confuses me, like when people sort of run around and they're like, yeah, we need to build this and that, and how we're going to staff our team and where we're going to find the people. In reality, most of the things in software, like I would say probably 80% is really not hard. Like maybe, if not 90. It's more like gluing things together, integrating. Unless you go into like really, really deep stuff, you become like very senior in the backend. So you're building something for a company that has a very huge scale and like a very big risk exposure. Most of the things are just like you type some texts and instruct the computer to do something. Like, I really struggle to find the complexity. It's more often the complexity is that people are afraid to go into something and like just try to engage themselves into it, and then they procrastinate for sometimes weeks, trying to find somebody else to help them, while they just could have, bite the bullet, spend 2-3 days crunching on something, trying to learn, and they would have been okay. To solve the particular business need, and they were able to move forward.
It's interesting that you cut that open because for me, I like the challenge part, and then at some point you get really good, you get productive, and then it kind of gets automatic to a point where you lose that challenge sense. And that's when I step away and I'm like, okay, what is another challenge or a new challenge?
Yeah.
And then another challenge could be kind of within the same skill set. So let's say I was very focused on backend engineering. I could do another backend assignment or join a company and do a project like that specifically, maybe a different domain. I, for example, moved to IoT and there were very different challenges on the backend side for that. Or that's what I've done recently, is another challenge in the form of not specifically backend engineering, but more what is next to that, what is around that.
Yeah.
And I found that in product management. Yeah.
I've never experienced product management. For me, it is still, I work a lot with product managers and very often with multiple ones at the same time. But
you've never found the allure?
I guess I was always afraid to talk so much with people. I was like, yeah, I really have to talk with a lot of people all
That's
the
job. Yeah.
And find the joy in that. If anything, recently I learned that one of the better product managers with whom I work, like very strong gentleman with whom I work with Miro, that he considers himself as an introvert. And I was like very surprised by that. Like, you're like all over the place, talking to so many people all the time, like hustling day and night. Like, how must be exhausting. Yeah. I
also consider myself an introvert. And yesterday I had a lot of sessions. I was exhausted by the end of the day. But I like the friction. And I like trying to mediate that from the driver's seat instead of, let's say, from the developer seat, trying to push up. Now I feel like I have a bit more autonomy to do so.
Don't you feel like other people will shine better in that position? Like,
maybe. Like, I'm still trying to find my drive and see if this is actually, first of all, something I like, something I'm good at. People are telling me I'm doing a good job, but yeah, I mean, I don't see it as much as other people do. So I like challenging myself in that as well. And also, like with development, is it then going to be, am I going to look to the next challenge when things are less of a friction? I'm not sure yet.
But it's like, there seems to be like two schools of thought. That, I mean, you have an array of skills, and then some of them you're better, some of them you're worse. And then to become like stronger yourself altogether as a professional, you can either like focus on those that are weaker, and then your average will go up. You'll become a good all-round professional, or you can just double down on the stronger sides and like fully neglect the weak ones, like just give up on them. And I guess either can work in reality. It's more like,
what has been kind of the challenge? Because you've gone more of this individual contributor route. What still drives you to, and what is like most interesting to do on that path as well?
Well, I mean, I need to give some retrospective, I guess, how I ended up here.
So, that's fine.
Because I've been working as an engineer for quite some years, and already when I was working at eBay, I got to what they call the member technical staff. But at eBay, it was a bit odd. Like, you also manage people. So I was like people manager and tech lead, something between.
Both.
I think sometimes it's called TLM or something else.
Okay.
But basically, I had people reporting to me, both like FTEs and full-time employees and contractors. And I ran a part of the product and developed that part of the product. So I worked closely with the product manager and the team, and did something myself, and also managed a lot of people and did performance cycles and things like that. And I did that for quite some time, and I was like, it's okay. But at the same time, I don't fully feel like pleasantly challenged. I'm challenged more in the amount of work and the politics and the internal communication, and doesn't seem to be that challenging, just more like the work you need to continuously do and like keep focus on that.
There's more work.
Yeah. And then I was asked to join this company, which was sort of a studio. It's basically, they asked me to be an interim CTO for a venture-backed startup that was building a vertical marketplace. But it was like a full greenfield project. There was like nothing, just zero at the beginning.
So hands-on CTO?
Yeah.
Well,
because initially there's just like nobody.
Exactly.
We had, two people from another project they were doing, or three already, I don't remember, and some like architecture that we were able to inherit.
Okay.
Because like all the, I don't know, Terraform code and everything else was written for it, and it was provisioned nicely on Google Cloud. And the other gentleman, which was a CTO at this venture lab, he was very comfortable with that piece of software. And we started building. I think the first year, it was just a lot of it was again a lot of IC work, and then we started hiring a bit more people and expanding the team a bit. It became got a bit more attention and focus.
Yeah,
I think by the biggest size it was like around, I think 20 people or something.
Okay.
We had very informal arrangements, but at the same time you had to manage people quite a lot and like manage also expectations left, right, up and down. And there was some people management, but at the same time, anyway, long story short, that experience made me feel that I am moving away from being able to just build things directly. And I didn't fully like that, and I thought it's a bit too early.
Okay.
That like, I mean, some people, they try to jump into management track as fast as they can. And like, I want to do that. I mainly just wanted to do things and enable product building, or like make something that people find useful and be engaged while doing that. And I thought that, okay, back then I was 35 or 36, and I thought that maybe I can spend another at least 5 years in IC role before like going into more management track. And then I will enjoy it quite a lot, but then I will need a slightly bigger field to play in.
Okay.
Because like...
not a startup, you mean?
Well, I mean, you can also do it in a startup, but as a staff engineer, you like need some amount of complexity to be able to solve those problems. If there's no complexity, I mean, you can call yourself a staff engineer or anything else, but like in reality, you'll be just a good senior and you'll be just crunching lots of code, but you wouldn't be solving these like non-linear puzzles because very often you just have to jump into the field where there's lots of ambiguity, which is mixed not only with a like technical stack or historical solutions or architecture, but you also have to navigate the politics of the company, the interests of people, the sometimes performance cycles or desires and what people want, to try to make some part of the org work together, even though they maybe not like formally directly part of the one reporting and management chain. And I find those like non-linear challenges interesting because I feel like that something's blocked. I do have like an array of tools that I collected over the years, and some of them are like stronger than others that I can utilize in order to address those non-linear challenges, and I find it fun. It's more like, I almost say those like, oh, it's an interesting problem. How can I solve this? How can I make it work? That in a given limitation, so the desired delivery date, we'll have something that will make business sense, that we can build up on, and that we'll be able to sell through the organization, and we'll be able to build with the capacity of people and the skills we have right now, and those that we'll be able to develop further. Like there's a lot of things like intersect at the same time, and once it like clicks and you like trying to sell it and work through the organization, and you feel like, okay, it's going, and like, okay, yeah, puzzle solved, and you feel like very nice. And then just like sort of capitalize on the tail of implementing that solution. And that's what I like. How did I get here? I don't even remember.
It's more from the execution side, and I mean, a lot of what you said triggered me, in that I'm now on a path and I don't know what my next role is going to be, because I've done a lot of IC work, and at some point it becomes more mundane, or there are challenges, but once you solve them, it's more of the same. And I don't think this routine of sprint after sprint really helps in that. So I'm trying out product management. I'm having a lot of fun with it, but I don't know where the end is, or if this is, let's say, a longer term path. Another part could be engineering management, where I probably go into what you've experienced, and that's more personal development, but also budgeting with regards to what we can manage and setting expectations and finding kind of buy-in within organizations, things like that. And then the path of developer advocacy, developer relations, which is more of podcasting and
that's very cool.
Completely new as well.
I personally don't like have that drive in me at all, and I saw people that are good at it, and I'm at O, but I somehow just don't feel it, which is a shame. Like I think it's a bit almost impolite to the industry not to give back, you know.
I mean, I think a lot of people do give back in whatever form, and there are just a lot of forms to do so. I like talking. I don't really like reading, so then writing, I mean, I've learned that it would help my talking, so I'm considering it, but I haven't really started that much. But yeah, those are kind of the tracks I see. And especially when you said that you might have been a bit early, also at that age, to jump into kind of more of a high over role. Yeah. For me, it's very interesting because I am already now considering it. I'm on the part of the people where you said they might have jumped too early. I'm not sure. And I do miss kind of this fulfillment of executing and delivering. That's what I miss right now.
Yeah. But like, I don't think you can be early in reality. Ideally, you would always start before you're ready. If you're ready, then you're ready too late. Yeah, it's almost always like this with anything you do. But you're also gonna go back. I mean, I need to go back, and it's fine. You know, it's all good. Yeah. But I wonder, like, for yourself. To give you an example, I personally somehow feel in myself that just projecting Ilya forward like 5-10 years, I don't feel like growing into enterprise management positions. I somehow don't. It doesn't click with me. I don't find it interesting. If anything, I guess like even at like 40 or 50, I'll be looking into just starting ventures, so like going like from 0 to 1, but like then growing it up all the way. It's not necessarily something where I feel I'm the strongest or where I get the most energy from. Like I like solving the problems, but once the problem is solved, I slowly become less and less engaged.
Yeah, like, I recognize that.
So in that sense, and I over the years trained myself to have enough patience to see towards the like final outcomes of the solution, to like to stick around and implement it all the way through. But I don't feel like that's like my strongest side. I feel like I'm much better at like breaking the walls, and that's I guess what will keep on doing. In that frame, if I will look forward and if I potentially would want to found another company myself, the best skill you can have is being an IC, because like you will be an IC in the first year, 2-3 of your own company. Whatever you'll be building, you'll have to be, ideally you'll be deeply engaged.
Yeah, and that's
if you're coming from the tech side. There will be some like hustler on board, or like maybe you'll become a hustler, but there'll be lots of things to do, to build, just like with your hands. So that's why I think the current track still aligns with that potentiality of my vision for myself. So for that, I wonder, like, how do you feel about yourself?
No, that's exactly why I'm hesitant, because I am like you, where I don't know, it's something entrepreneurial, I guess, that's always been in there. I want to build something of my own from scratch, from 0 to 1, make it scale, and also all the way through. And the IC role and skills are incredibly valuable there and then and early on.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose that. That's why I'm kind of hesitant, and I try and kind of get a feel for a lot of things. So then I can also judge kind of on that journey what is going well and what is not going well. Know a lot of kind of everything. Yeah. But I still need depth. That's true. That's why I'm hesitant in going all in. And that's why I'm trying this out now.
I wonder if that's true. You need the depth to start companies. Like, depending on the type of company, I guess. I
mean, the people that started companies tell me that you don't need that. And just start it.
Yeah. I mean, you start and then you can just continue and you acquire the depth all the time. But I feel like, even like from the knowing that a little bit about you that I do, if you're now, I mean, you've been full stack, backend, and now you're going to product, that's a very good all-around skill set. Like that will also help you with fundraising, with communicating, with making the projections. Just talk the language that VCs will understand better. Yeah. Then for me, like, that was a bit of a eye-opening thing when I was in that venture-backed company. That people find that to be very important. They talk a lot about that because, like, it's very hard to reason about how we're going to build this way or that way for people that are bringing the money and are thinking about the business like long term. So in that sense, product management experience is much more relevant, which I think is cool that you're doing this. I'm
trying it, and I feel like, I mean, this podcast has gone on for 3 years. I've worked on my communication, and I feel like I have the fruits now of that labor in the conversation I have with stakeholders. Yeah. Like, I can see, and they tell me, like, it's crystal clear. And it might not have been clear, or sometimes I don't have it clear, and when I do, it just clicks and I'm able to communicate that as well. Yeah. And that's really cool to see. But I also know from the conversations you and I have had, I don't have the same depth that you have when it comes to the IC role. I mean, just by looking at number of years of expertise, you're definitely ahead of that. And I'm very curious how you find that depth, or how you continuously challenge yourself to kind of find new challenges there.
I guess mainly like crippling imposter syndrome, which is like always there. And partially as well, like I feel like now the time I spent in the industry starts to work against me, because like whatever I was doing, I think already 5 years plus, like 7 years plus, is a bit irrelevant. People don't work like that anymore, which is fine. But at the same time, somehow by doing this over and over again, you become much more brave and to just like jump into any new field right away, and you will feel comfortable there. Like I know, to give you an example, I happened to work as a data scientist for some time in my past, and back when I did it, it was for this edtech startup here in Netherlands, in Amsterdam. Essentially, what we were doing, we were listening to the internet traffic of the whole like country, because technical drought. When you open a web page or any other page on the internet, you sometimes see ads, right, on the left, right. Like if you open like Marktplaats, it will be ads all over the place. The way those ads are populated, whenever the page is requested, the request goes from the server to the what is called exchange, and over the OpenRTB protocol, which stands for Open Real-Time Bidding, with like stamp of your with the stamp of your data, so that people that are connected to the exchange can make a educated guess whether to bid or not bid on that ad spot placement. Yeah, and then they'll like say like, okay, I'm gonna pay like 10 micros, which is like 1,000th of a dollar or a cent, or I forgot, but like very little amount. But then the highest bid wins, and that bidder pays the second bid. So that's how it works. But essentially, it means anytime you open a web page with any ad, the request will go to the exchange server, and people that are trying to bid on that place, they can listen to the traffic. So if you build a company and connect to that exchange, you can just like listen to all the web pages being open in the country. Okay. So and I think nowadays it's not as straightforward and way less legal, but it was before GDPR. But essentially, we collected that traffic from just the whole country of Netherlands, US, and Russia, and we then try to profile the traffic and understand how many people are there behind a particular IP address. Like, is it a household? If it's a household, how many people are living there? What are their ages? And you can also like deduce that. Also, we would couple all your devices together. We will say, okay, we think that this is your laptop, this is your smart TV, and this is your phone. Okay. Because if you travel between, and this is your work laptop, because if you travel between your home network in Netherlands, you'll have a dedicated IP address, and then you'll see the same device with the same device ID, which is sent to this exchange on another network from another IP address. And then you'll say like, hey, it's you. Like when it's in the morning, you're there, on the weekend, you're there. You see this device showing up there. And during the work hours, this device shows up in this other network. So it's you, and you're one person, and you're going to work every day. You know that. Long story short, using that, we try to optimize the way to run ad campaigns, like to sell sneakers or whatnot. But we were doing that way before Google BigQuery came to be about, or like this company, or companies like Snowflake or Databricks. And they were using MapReduce. Like good old MapReduce, when it just appeared, all that white paper, everybody was doing MapReduce. And you like literally bought EC2 instances from Amazon, and you deployed your Hadoop there, and you ran your data pipelines on your private MapReduce. It took forever, was very slow, was very expensive, was very painful to work with as well. Yeah. Because like MapReduce has very straightforward logic. You can map things one-to-one, or you can reduce them, like somehow like a sequence of things into the results. So in order to express your more complicated data pipelines, you would use things like Clojure to do these calculations and map them to the jobs that will run in this cluster. So I did that, and after that I stopped doing that, and I went to eBay and did a very different type of work with the Go. We were building a backend solutions for, well, also ads, but like on the server side, like where we maintain the inventory and serve the traffic of people coming to the website. And then fast forward to nowadays, and all these like LLMs become like all over the place. And I have to say, like, even if you are not buying into the hype, but you're an engineer, probably you have to interact with them one way or the other.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand them well, it's gonna play against you, or like it will hold you back. You wouldn't be able to advocate or talk about the same complexity of products you potentially can build with them, especially if you are more like specialized in backend.
Yeah.
And I specialized in the backend. So I was like, oh, okay, I think I'll have to dive back into that field again and try to understand it better. So yeah, I am now trying to see how to build your own LLM from scratch with Python and stuff. And I feel very out of my depth because I haven't been doing anything like that for like ages and ages and ages.
Yeah.
And I started with the baby steps, which I think like almost anybody will be able to do, even if they like have like 1 year of experience of programming, they probably will be able to follow the same path. Like maybe some of the math is a bit more complicated than it has to be sometimes, but in reality it's all linear algebra.
Yeah.
And if you had at university, or if you spend half a year or so studying it, you'll be fine. But I have no advantage over anybody who started this same field like a year ago. Maybe I'm more comfortable with, I don't know, my Vim and stuff like that, but that's not a big advantage. And the amount of time it will take me to get up to speed is more or less the same time as it will take anybody other engineer with 1 or 2 years of experience to get up to speed.
I think you might be doing yourself a disjustice there, because the perspective and the history that you've built up, you can leverage that in whatever new thing you pick up. Like if I really pick up something from scratch, I've never done that. If I've picked up many things from scratch and I've never done that, you get better at actually the comfort zone, how to break it down, where to start, going through those steps. And especially when I did backend engineering, like I would pair program and this person would talk me through everything.
Yeah.
And after I did it, I was like, well, I have no clue what I actually did, but now we achieved this. So I felt good. And then at some point you get to this mode of doing it yourself and doing it more often. And in the beginning I struggled. I was like, okay, where do I start? And then you learn to step back and not actually immediately jump into it, but theoretically break it down in your head or make it small, or actually start in the first place and don't go into analysis paralysis. Like those things I feel like help me pick up new things faster. But you're right, if there's a new thing like LLMs and you don't actually know how it works and that's the route you want to go with regards to education, then yeah, if no one has ever done that, from an education standpoint, you're all the same. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it's true. Maybe you become like very comfortable with getting out of the comfort zone. It's just like you don't dwell around. You just like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go right in.
And I'm not doing that, mostly because I don't know if I need it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I care enough to actually figure out how it works.
You don't care about LLMs. Come on.
Like I like using them.
Yeah.
But do I really want to know how I would make my own model, or do I want to make something out of the models that exist? That's for me the difference.
It annoys me that I don't fully understand how they function through and through.
I can see that.
Like, every time I'm like looking at the APIs or trying to do this, like this prompt engineering, I'm like, I feel so annoyed that I don't fully understand how it works inside.
Yeah, like I'm curious, but to be effective, let's say in a product where we have to have something that analyzes a PDF and then spits out based on the contents of the PDF, which might be like 300 pages, the right answer based on the question that you have. I would, I think, be able to build that without knowing what the model actually does to a certain degree. And sure, I would have to go in depth to some point to get it done, but I think I could execute. I might not understand the full thing, and I'm not sure if I need to, but sometimes I don't understand, or I don't want to understand everything below the surface. And that's definitely different from you and I.
Yeah, I kind of do. I don't believe that magic exists. So whenever anything feels like magic, I'm like, yeah, no. I'm going to find out what's the trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably also why I initially said, I think you have a deeper path on the IC role than me so far. Because I've always had, okay, what do I need to do? How do I execute? And sure, I go deep in certain degrees. Yeah. Like I'm going to give a Go fundamentals training. That's more on a language level. Yeah. And I need that knowledge to give the training. So I got the knowledge and I'm still not there. Like I still can go deeper probably. So I execute based on what I need to do and also just on interest.
Yeah.
Maybe LLMs would have interested me, and then I would go down that path. But for some reason, it just doesn't that much. And for you, I feel like you need to know a lot.
It's all right, yeah.
But I do think it's an interesting case. A lot of people will want to be productive or will want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen, let's say, variations in how deep people want to go with regards to certain subjects.
Yeah.
A backend engineer might go really deep into backend engineering, and then all of a sudden cloud pops up, and they want to be a Google Cloud expert as well when it comes to the infrastructure and how to most optimize whatever you have that is running. And I don't think there's a bad path there as well.
I somehow, I think, focus around disciplines around backend engineering. Predominantly, that to me, it always felt and still does that in a grown business, that's the place where you can get the most impact as an engineer, because you kind of control the things tied together. You work with the scale as well.
Yeah.
I feel like about 10 years ago that you could get a really strong advantage if your UI and UX were like top notch.
Okay.
But now, yeah, everybody's UI and UX is top notch. It's like just became the new normal, and you don't surprise anybody with that, and you can't get a huge outsized impact through being good at that.
That's interesting.
Nowadays. But it's my subjective feeling. Well, at the backend end, you always things that will have to scale, they will probably have a backend solution at some point.
Yeah, that's interesting. For me, I have done a little bit of front end. In the end, it ended up being 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And I now really appreciate people that can do that well. And I do agree, let's say, I don't know if it's the barrier of entry, but there are a lot of front-end engineers.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that are really good, like I appreciate that because they know from history everything with regards to JavaScript or a lot of things that make them more productive. And they're very, very good at classifying when they need what with regards to requirements or if they actually don't need it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's a front-end specific skill or if that's just good engineering.
I think it's just good engineering altogether. But I feel like there's a whole new class of front-end engineers. Like they know how the browser works, like what kind of threads run, what threads will deadlock or will be too slow, and how to access internal storage and optimize that. Or they will start writing Rust and compiling things into Wasm and then tying this together with their main application. And that's like a whole new depth in the front-end development. Like it's
that's new.
That's super new, and it's also like super hardcore. You know, you like sometimes it's like deep into the brain of WebKit or something. It's like whoa.
Yeah, it's getting depth.
Yeah.
Like it's not comparable, I think, to what we had 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's getting more and more depth to a point where I'm like, okay, they're like, okay, you need less infrastructure. Oh, you might not even need a backend. Oh, we do everything on the front end. Like it's some patterns there are really funny to see. Yeah. But I want to touch on interviewing as well because you mentioned you started at that CTO position, very much hands-on, and you've grown the team then to, you said about 20 people.
Yeah.
And probably in your career, you've been very involved in hiring as well.
Oh, yeah.
In our intro call, we touched on LeetCode. And I told you, in the Reddit communities that I'm in and also on Twitter, people hate LeetCode. At least that's kind of the general mindset. What do you think about LeetCode?
I love LeetCode. Moreover, I wish there was more. It's like everywhere. If anything, I think companies that don't ask LeetCode questions, if they could, they would have. Like they just don't get the people that will be able to pass those interviews.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll try to break down why people use LeetCode in interviews from the first principles. Like you have an interview process. You have a person in front of you. You want them to solve technical solutions for you in the future and now. You want to hire them for now, but probably you plan to grow as a company. So you also want to see them to be able to grow and like navigate through the complexity that it's going to appear. As a company, you have some domain, whatever that is. I don't know, maybe you're building marketplaces, maybe you're building construction or whatnot, or maybe you're selling luxury goods. Different, or like you build something like Miro. You have some domain, which as an engineer, you'll have to understand better and better. Maybe you're in Texas, so you'll have to understand the domain of Texas. And you should be able to navigate that. how can I verify that you're capable to acquire a knowledge in some domain and then operate with that complexity within it?
Yeah.
Like, well, I need some domain that we all share that I can assess and then can reason about. Because like, if you come to a company that builds, I don't know, factories, it's unreasonable to expect you to have any domain knowledge about that field, and you wouldn't be able to utilize it. So you want to have a shared field. Discrete analysis, or particularly like algorithms and stuff like that, that is more or less the shared field for all software engineers. Like we all use it one way or the other. So it's a very democratic to ask things in this field, because like it's quite okay to expect you to know that field. Like it's not a brand new field for you. So you are able to tap into a big pool of people that are coming to join the company. To like expand your incoming funnel first, like people that are able to come in. Because if, for example, you'll be asking them, hey, can you please build this in Turbo C because we use it on that microcontroller, and the task is that the light switch go up and down.
You have to figure that out.
No.
Yeah.
Like this architecture of this microcontroller, Turbo C, like when's the last time anybody used it? God knows. It's unreasonable to expect you to have that domain. And like, if you'll be like, yeah, but no, but we're going to have like questions like that, like your incoming funnel of people able to like even walk into the door can be very tiny, non-existent almost. So you're shooting yourself in the foot. So that's already where LeetCode helps, because it's a common shared domain, lingua franca. And then you are given some problem and you want to see how the person, it's not that you will optimally solve the question. It's more like that you will be able to take the interviewer with you on the journey of solving the problem. Like you kind of first want to clarify that you understood the problem correctly. You want to ask around to understand what other ambiguities were there that weren't mentioned, or maybe the interviewer forgot to tell you or didn't tell you on purpose. So you understand like, okay, what's the scope of the problem? You can scope the problem. Then you can understand, okay, I have like 45 minutes to address it. Like at what level of depth can I address it in this time? At like very surface level, but that's fine. And then you try to work out this plan and sell it to the interviewer. Okay, I think I'm gonna use Brett BFS to walk around this graph, and then I'm gonna find the shortest path, and then I'm gonna do something with that solution. And I think it'll have like roughly that complexity, and like gonna take this amount of resources. And like, yeah, okay, like this seems fine, and maybe they will correct you. And then they want to see that you size the problem, you solve the solution, and then they want to see you execute on it. And you just like, I don't know, write down 10, 15, 20 lines of code, and then the problem is like solved. Yeah. Altogether. So you are being like dragged through all the things you'll be doing as an engineer, which will take you like, I don't know, a month probably, but like in the microcosm of the LeetCode task, which is nothing wrong with that. Like all the things that people want you to understand, space and time complexity of the problems, like those do show up in your work at more senior levels. Like once you, especially if you're in the backend, but also in the front end, like it's a big problem if you have I don't know, n+1 queries. Like it's like when you're querying something in a database in the loop. They're gonna kill the performance, it's gonna be horrible. It's not rocket science to go from like, linear to just like make one call, batch everything else, but like just so you understand where do you create complexity and how do you create it, where do you create complexity in space and time, it does help you a lot to build better solutions that scale better and that are easy to maintain and that are cheaper. And I do feel like that like a feel for this space-time complexity in algorithms transfers really well to building, just seeing complexity in, I don't know, in software that you build, and also like in life, I don't know, how you're laying bricks in your apartment.
I think mainly due to your experience, you see how it translates. And a lot of the frustration where I see it is maybe either earlier in career, but even with senior engineers, they don't see where it translates. And then I get it, because if you don't see where it translates, you're like, okay, I have to learn this trick specifically, and when I land the job, then I'm doing completely different things. But I think there are places where you would see it, or at least you have to think about it.
I think the disconnect happens mainly at like entry levels, like at junior or medium positions. You probably will be doing like very straightforward things.
Yeah.
You'll be trying to understand how things are tied together, how they work together. You'll be doing like just bricklaying, basically the software. And yeah, then doesn't translate. But not having those skills will hold you back from being able to grow further in your career. And ideally, companies don't want to hire somebody that will like reach their ceiling at the media level, because it's a bit of a waste money. It takes quite a lot of time to hire a person,
educate
them, to keep them in the company. And it's nice if you know, like, okay, this person has further potential to grow further and further and further if they want to, because you want to be able, people to be able to grow if the business grows altogether. So it's much better to hire people that, you know, okay, that person will have a potential to grow into high complexity, and probably they'll also will do that faster because of this exposure to LeetCode and stuff like that. What I don't understand, like, people complain like, yeah, it's useless. It doesn't take a huge effort to become better at LeetCode problems. Like, there are just books written, like Grok in the coding interview or something like that by these people from Google. This LeetCode itself, it has like, I don't know, 2,000 problems altogether. Like 400 of them are easy, and they're like basically trivial. It's more like, can you altogether write a for loop at that level? But if you solve all of them, then you'll feel much more comfortable to do like medium level. And if you solve like 200-300 of medium level, you can then tap into some of the hard ones. All in all, from being able to write basic code to be okay at LeetCode, probably takes half a year if you just like do it a bit every day. Spend half an hour. So you have like half a year investment, and then you're able to go into any tech company to come join them almost. It seems like a rather good deal. Like, I don't know where else you have to study for half a year with some focus, and then being able to tap into good employment opportunities. You can't start like medicine for half a year and then go do something like that's not gonna work.
Years.
It can take like 8 years plus.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, so what's the problem there? Like, just
I don't know, man.
half a year and bam, all the opportunities. You can work almost in any country you want as well. And if you speak English, I'm like, seems like a good deal. I don't know. I struggle to see how are you on the bad side of this equation?
You're slowly convincing me. Like, I was in the camp of, and this is also because I'm not great at it. Like, if I were to do a hard exercise right now, I could probably not do it. I've done a few here and there, and also to prepare for interviews. And it is effort that I don't know if I want to spend, but I can do it. I'm sure I just have to bite the bullet and do it. Yeah, that's the thing. I do like this mantra, and also transitioning from the interview, that I see them do something more, let's say, still standard, where we can still have the discussion, where it still has some of the complexity, but it's more related to what you would actually do. Let's say, okay, we're in the e-commerce domain, or even if not, e-commerce is actually pretty standardized nowadays in any case. Get an API, tie it to a database, ask for an order, see if it goes through based on inventory, things like that. That's the interview style that I like as well. Because then we're talking about APIs and not necessarily complexity and isolation. Because I can still be, like you said, do the effort of half a year, be really good at complexity and isolation, and then make the wrong decision on where to implement what. That's something that's harder to challenge with regards to specific algorithmic, let's say, exercises. Yeah,
but you will make errors. But also, like, there's other topic that you touched, that's more like system design interview rather than coding, right?
Yeah.
That's fine.
They go hand in hand? Do they go hand in hand, do you think?
Well, usually those are two different interviews. Like, and they partially test similar subjects as well. Yeah. Like, especially in the system design at high positions, you will have to think about problems of scaling quite a lot. And you have to think about like functional requirements and those things. And understanding of complexity will help you quite a lot there. Because, it helps. But like, back to your question, when you said like, if you try to solve a hard LeetCode problem, it's hard. Well, yeah, I mean, if you go to the gym and you put like 200 kilograms on the bar and try to lift it, it's going to be hard. Yeah. If you'll put, I don't know, 50 kilograms and lift it, you'll probably be able to do that for like 10 times. you do that for half a year, you'll be able to put like 75 kilograms on that bar. And another, well, probably a year, I don't know how long, but at some point you will get over the 100. And you'll be like, okay, this is approachable. Like it's the same thing of going for the hard LeetCode problem, just trying to like lift 200 kilogram bar from the ground up while not ever going to the gym. Like it's a odd expectation that you're able to do that.
I think that's fair.
That you would feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Of course not. Like it's a bit ridiculous. Like your brain is also sort of a muscle. You can train it, your cognitive abilities. And that's also why I feel like sometimes when you solve those LeetCode problems, like the head hurts a little, you know? You're just like,
absolutely.
How does this come together? And trying to draw it out and then you read the solution and like, I still don't get it. And it's just like, it's painful almost sometimes. But then once you go through the pain and you understood it once, all of a sudden like, oh yeah, that's approachable. And next time you're like, okay, this was actually, how did I not get it earlier? So it's a very similar process. So just like training your cognitive abilities to see those things.
Yeah. It might be then so I've never gone deep with regards to LeetCode, but I feel very effective. The parts where throughout my career where I didn't feel as effective as I wanted to was where I would either lack fundamental knowledge or lack depth.
Yeah.
So I would feel effective or think something and think of how to do it, and then all of a sudden I would get stuck or be like, why did that take longer than I expected?
Yeah.
Then I would realize that's actually either fundamental knowledge or depth that I was missing. But I would do that continuously. And I've never actually done this proactively because I do it reactively based on whatever I need to do, basically. And I feel like the LeetCode approach is more proactive. If you combine that then with system design, if you can do both really well, you're just a really senior engineer, I feel like, or an individual contributor in that way, but also senior. And that's the part maybe which is underestimated, or at least where I would underestimate it. Because I expect to do what I do now, or at least in the most sense, like you mentioned, we don't really do complexity all the time. Yeah. With LeetCode, it's complexity and in isolation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect way to train. You almost can like speed run your own career development if you get better at LeetCode and system design, because you'll be able to tackle bigger challenges faster.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to take you 5 years to grow that path. It's going to take you like 2. It's pretty good, I think.
Yeah. That's what I love about what you said, that it's like, it does sound like a cheat, at least how you laid it out. And I never viewed it like that. I did see it as a hurdle, to be honest. I was in the camp of, okay, why? And in reality, it's there, but it's not as much there. And it's just this hurdle that you have to pass. And I still believe that. But I also believe that you build really good fundamental knowledge if you're good at it. Or at least if you pass the bar, let's say.
Try to present it like the other camp. Like people that think it's useless.
I don't think it's
like
useless. I just think it's not represented enough of what you would do on a day-to-day.
Oh, for sure. No, it's not.
That's why I have the dislike. Yeah.
Like tomorrow, I know a friend of a friend who was like, he was very good at LeetCode, and he just like spent lots of, I think he sold like 75 to 80%. By the time he was still in university, like he was spent a lot of time on just LeetCode and nothing else. And he was doing computer science. And then I think he got himself a junior position at Amazon, at Facebook.
Okay, good for him.
And he was like absolutely useless. Like he just wouldn't be able to do anything. Like he literally couldn't write any code altogether. He barely knew HTML. Okay. Like he was only good at LeetCode.
Solving puzzles.
So like he got in, and then he had like a very frustrating like year and a half or 2. And after that he was kind of like,
yeah, I'm out.
What's it all called? Peeped out, like on the performance improvement plan.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, because like he just couldn't deliver anything, even on like a very basic level, and struggled with everything else apart from LeetCode. So you can also do that. If that's your plan, please don't. It's a bad idea. You're not gonna be happy. You're gonna feel pretty miserable even if you're gonna get in.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What would be a good balance then? Because I get this question a lot as well, but that's more on the soft skill side. if we stick to the technical, LeetCode is part of it. Yeah. You mentioned system design as well. But what makes a really good, let's say, senior engineer or even beyond?
Well, I mean,
I know it's a broad one.
It's a very like open question. And I don't feel like the solution per se lies in LeetCode or system design, although there as well. Like for LeetCode, I think they have like a list of these interview prep questions. They're like 150 problems. Just solve those. You'll be fine. And they also like gradually go up from like easy to hard. And like if you're trying to solve a problem, you spend 45 minutes on it, you still have nothing in your head as to how you can approach it and nothing works. Look at the solutions. Like don't fight further. Like if it's an exercise, you try to take it, doesn't work, you start the solution, you then implement it blind without looking at the solution. The learning process already happened, and you spent like 2 hours instead of spending the whole day on the problem.
Yeah.
Like out of those 150 or how many they have for the interview course, they have out of that you're not going to get much better. If you will start enjoying it, sure, continue, but it's not kind of the point of diminishing returns is around there. Like it's not going to get better. For the system design, yeah, there are lots of different courses, and system design is also very different for backend and front-end engineers and data scientists. I think I have mainly exposure to backend part of that.
Yeah,
I have no idea how do people do system design in the front end. I can guess, but it's going to be a rather generic guess, so I'd rather not share it. But I think what makes people senior altogether is being able to navigate ambiguity and be able to solve for business problems. And there's also like how people are gonna most often evaluate your performance. Like if you are trying to build the best architecture for every problem you're trying to solve, it's not going to be very useful because it's going to be at times over-architected. Maybe it's going to look nice, but the level of complexity at which you will be operating will not justify that level of complexity of architecture. And maybe it's going to be very by the book and going to look like you want it from the like they want it in clean code, but it's not going to yield business outcomes. So you ideally want to holistically, forgive me for this word, it's like been overused a lot, but you want to holistically understand the business problem and where you can outsize your impact. Like if you talk with the business people or people on the front lines or product people, like, hey, what are we actually trying to solve for our customer? You'll be like, oh, maybe you don't even need to write anything. You can just like do it like this and it's going to work. And then we'll get some learnings. And if you want to double down on that, then we'll have to scale it and spend 2 months or 4 sprints to implement it. But otherwise, we can acquire these early learnings in some other way. So almost like if you can hack your way towards the learnings early, like that's the best. And then you continuously like have to play both hats. You're trying to hack things where it matters, where it doesn't matter that you hack them, but you want to get the learnings, but you want to do things in a more sustainable way where you think it matters and there seems to be a business buy-in, and this is going to be your roadmap for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and potentially you want to be able to build up on that later. So like there's no like one clear outcome. It's definitely not just coding, or like not being like, just like your podcast beyond coding. Like I do think that people become senior when they go beyond coding.
Okay.
Like yeah, because
it's gonna be my new tagline. I think it's really good.
I can absolutely subscribe to that.
That's good. Very interesting, because something you mentioned with regards to navigating ambiguity. Yeah. I had a person on, product manager, very senior from Google, has done engineering management, also came from an engineering background. And I asked him, now that I've done this product management, like that was very early on in my switch, let's say.
Yeah.
What makes for a really good product manager? And he said navigating ambiguity as one of the first things. And that translates there, because if you're really good at that from the engineering side, I think you need it also on the product side, and maybe just in general, being more comfortable in the ambiguous and being able to solve anything, whether that's on the technical side or more so from the stakeholder side with regards to domains or even the political landscape of a company, I think that makes for a really good contributor. Doesn't matter if it's on the product side or more so as an IC role.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting insight.
I feel like you just broaden the amount of people you're able to talk to in the company. Like if you're just navigating coding, well, you can talk to the people that define the particular problem that they want to be solved in the code. But if you're able to go beyond that, outside of that, you're able to talk together with your product manager to help him to navigate the ambiguity that he's facing from his customers. And you can just like see, okay, how to like hustle together with him or her to have product outcomes. If you're going to go even further beyond that and go to salespeople or somebody who's running the company, it's also great, and that only makes you more and more important and impactful in that particular company.
Yeah. And I feel like that is a skill you can develop. And it's very, let's say, isolated and more so scoped, I think, from the engineering side, because you know where something is unknown, let's say, because you're like, okay, we don't know that, we have to explore that. And you dive into something new, specifically scoped to something technical pretty often, based on a domain or based on a new organization or based on the challenge at hand, whether that's scale or just ramping up as fast as possible, different challenges. And then if I were to start on the product side, I would not have any experience dealing with ambiguity. I'd be like, okay, this person says X, Y, and Z. I don't really have any history. Yes, no, maybe I have no clue.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have a better, let's say, gut feeling or at least history or perspective to fall back on to be like, okay, no, I actually think this, or I can actually confidently say no to some things, implementation wise or even requirement wise.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I'm happy it does translate though, because it means that I can have a lot of fun in different roles with kind of a life skill in dealing with ambiguity. Do you deal with ambiguity like also beyond the tech, or where have you found that as well?
Well, yeah, fortunately so. I decided it's a good idea to, buying an apartment was a good idea, but we also decided together with my girlfriend that it's a good idea to renovate it ourselves. There's still a good idea in renovating things, but I still feel it's a good idea. And I also found this journey to be rather pleasant. Painful because some of it's just like very exhausting, but also pleasant. But you're constantly trying to fit solutions to problems that you have in front of you, and then like it's up to you and your ethics. Are you gonna go for a better solution? Are you gonna cut corners? But also, like, if you're doing this for yourself,
it's gonna impact you.
You're right in your own place.
Yeah,
like you are the end customer, so you feel the full cycle.
Oh yeah,
because when you do it for something else, but else probably would have slightly different guiding principles. So be like, I should make this economically viable. And when you do it for yourself, like, no, I should make it nice.
You want the full-blown suite.
It also like exposes you yourself to your own character and your character flows.
Because this is what I see from the product side with stakeholders, people love coming up with ideas and solutions. And I'm trying to make sure that we start simple, we expand, and we basically build what we know now and are flexible for the future. With a house, you can't do that as much. So you have to decide how iterative you want to be.
Yeah, I don't fully agree with that idea that you want to be flexible for the future, to be honest. Like, maybe there's like another sort of like contrarian point. You don't know where that future is going to come. Like, how far in the future do you want to look? Like, should it survive 1 to 3 years? I feel like everything above a year and a half for an early company just doesn't make sense. Like, the world's gonna look very different in that time. The people you're gonna be working with also gonna be very different. If a company is itself 1 or 2 or 3 years old, everything you create right now will be torn to pieces a year later, or like maybe 2 years later.
Then I think we're saying the same thing, but maybe I phrased it differently. Because I want to be flexible enough to not lock myself in, let's say, based on decisions for the future. What I've seen is that people love future-proofing things, and I can't future-proof anything because I don't know the future.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then we are saying the same things.
Absolutely.
But what about the house situation then? Because that's different.
Oh, the house. Well, we do utilize slightly more modular approaches to constructing the house. Like, unlike the regular construction, we build almost everything in a way that you can maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to come up with example. Simplest example is like you're building a bathroom,
mm-hmm.
and you want to have a bathtub.
Okay.
Like, how do people normally place a bathtub? Like this bathroom, there are like this, how call them, like black walls, like not finished walls without tiles, just like raw blocks of I don't know, concrete and bricks and whatnot. People put the bathtub and then they build the bathroom around it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one way to do it. But then if for whatever reason you want to change the bathroom, you want to get under it, you want to remove it, put the shower there instead, or whatever else, you kind of have to fully deconstruct that corner, and you are with this like big open space where things don't look very nice and it's not very usable. The way we decided to put this bathroom was to first like build the whole space and tiled it, and then we installed the bathroom, and then we build the thing around it which covers it. So if for whatever reason we want to either change the bathroom or remove it and put the standing shower there instead, you can do that without much of a further investment or crazy amount of efforts.
And that's the modular part.
And the same like with all the piping or the electricity where you can access it. Almost everything is built in a way that you can maintain it. You can get to the things. Nothing is like built in and then the concrete is poured on top and then you can never touch it. Mm-hmm. It does require more effort and more time, but at the same time, somehow it made me feel much more comfortable about this house in the future and how I'll be living there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's gonna be very fulfilling when you get to a point where.
Not to brag, it took us almost 2 years now.
Yeah,
and I think we're about the finish line.
That's chunky.
But like 2 years.
Oh yeah.
But it's like classical software development project. Like in the beginning, we thought like, yeah, probably like 6 months to 9 months we'll be done.
Okay, optimistic.
And then it's like, yeah, okay. And then at some point you like, throughout the process, people would ask like, so when do you think you're gonna move in? And like we're like, yeah, maybe then. Mm. I think about half a year later to 7 months, we stopped answering that question.
Yeah.
We were like, we're just enjoying the process. We won't take our time. And basically, we also restructured our process that we didn't push for any deadline anymore, but try to restructure this process as just something part of our life, and we will learn to enjoy it rather than to be very sorrow about it and like be whiny about it or be annoyed about it. And that was not very economically viable, but it made the journey much more pleasant. And
sounds like a lot of learnings in there. Yeah. Managing your own expectations also.
Exactly.
And not setting deadlines. That's really funny because there's a lot of similarities for product development.
Very much. It's also like selling to your customer, like to my girlfriend. Like
yeah.
We also have different opinions about how to do things.
Oh yeah.
Quite some politics in there.
Mm-hmm. As a final question, and I was getting to this, but it might be when you finish the house. You mentioned you have this kind of entrepreneurial drive, or at least also kind of aim for the future to build something from 0 to 1, be there more hands-on, and then make it scale as well.
Yeah.
Why hasn't it started yet? And I love this question because people usually ask me, and I hate the question.
Well, I don't hate it. I did, and it's just like all the previous takes failed. That's the straightforward truth. Yeah. Like, I did sound like attempts which were, I guess, not as serious enough from rather early age. We built this recommendation engine in 2010 that would recommend movies from a big graph, which will then allow you to do horizontal recommendations, like from the taste in movies, you'll be able to recommend you the type of music you would love to listen, or the type of cafe you'd want to go, because we would try to like break down the movies into like this cloud of tags, make a graph out of that, and then break out a cafe also in a cloud of tags. Like, I don't know.
Who was we? You mentioned we?
It's me and my friend back then,
okay.
The two of us.
Yeah.
sort of almost fresh out of university. We were building that, and we built for quite some time. Got to some prototype. Applied to Y Combinator. They didn't take us in, but I guess we didn't look serious enough or didn't push hard enough. I don't know. And then somehow we got into a fight, and the thing kind of fell apart over the time. I then joined a few years later, after working at some other companies. I joined that edtech startup, the one I talked about, where we profiled the internet traffic. I was basically the second engineer and the fourth person altogether. So there was like a CTO, CEO, another engineer, and I was the fourth engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And we were building that product, and it was getting some traction, but like wasn't full product market fit. And after 2 years, we didn't get enough. We didn't have enough funds to continue like that, and they didn't have enough money to pay me. I didn't money to live and stuff like that. And then I joined eBay because I was like, I had to do something else.
Stability.
Now. But I was like hoping to like, because in my ideal world back then, I would just double down on building that and this early ventures.
Yeah.
I then joined this another venture-backed thing with luxury watches, where we built a vertical marketplace. And my general desire was also to try to continue building that as an independent venture going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And even while doing that, we built this iOS and Android app, which is a marketplace for fitness trainers. You could like create your own program, submit it to this app, and then people will be able to sign up to use a personal trainer and follow your exercise routine.
Mm-hmm.
But since I was doing this with my friend who's also an engineer, like he back then I think still worked at Google. Now he works on another startup. We were 2 engineers, and we built a very good solution. We published to the App Store, to the Android store, but like we had like zero hustle. Like we understood everything we needed to do, but like you just didn't do it.
Okay.
Because like for me, it's hard to explain the level of how good am I at sabotaging myself at not doing that.
Okay.
And I found myself continuously that I guess it's kind of something I learned about myself, that I do need like a hustler in the venture.
Well, what do you mean with hustler then? Like actually, because it sounds like you had the product, and I'm not sure where it fell flat.
Hustling is like continuously talking to your product manager. Like somebody will continuously talk to the end customers, will be very patient and understand them, translating them, their requirements and asks to the building team.
Yeah.
And that part, because I don't find it somehow for myself as engaging, and I don't do it very well.
Yeah.
But once presented with a challenge, I can hack the solution which will work, going from like 0 to 1 and have the business outcome. But like that continuous like business drive, I don't have that part. And I was thinking about myself, maybe I have it. And over the years, I think like I probably don't. And by this time, I'm absolutely ready to like fully have buy-in. Be like, I don't, and it's fine. I'm good at other things.
Yeah.
I just need to partner up with party that will cover that part.
Yeah.
And like even right now at Miro, I find myself quite often partner up with people that they are doing these ventures inside of the company, but like they're doing like takes at new complicated developments in the product, either for external customers or for the internal customers, being engineers. And I really like to support the thrive and be like with execution and the product or something that will do that. But I'm not as good at like a front line of that.
Yeah.
So that's also why I altogether think that probably over the period of time, one way or another, I will find myself in a similar position when I will be taking another go at more independent venture building, maybe within Miro, maybe outside, I don't know. But probably I'll be doing the same function of like building things. That's why I feel very comfortable staying in the IC position. Because I just find whatever the challenge I see, like when people struggle to make things happen, like they know what they want, they have the buy-in, they do the other part of the equation, on the product business side, and they need to make these things happen, and they struggle with that because that's where I think I get lots of joy in. I say it as like LeetCode hard problem, you know.
Yeah, the hardest there is,
and it's fun, and I really enjoy it. I thrive in that.
That's cool, man.
Coming back to the idea of like whether you want to make catch up on the skills you don't have and make them be stronger, or you like double down on the skills you're a bit better at. I feel by this time more comfortable doubling down on the skills I do have, and like be at peace with the things that I'm just bad at and like not able to execute well.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. I love that perspective. And even when you say you're bad at it, I do think they're to a point adequate, because I don't think you can go completely without. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to recognize the really good skill on the other side of the people that you admire and want to support in that way, or that you need kind of as a co-venture.
It's still an open question if I can do that, right?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Time will tell. But even if all gonna fail, I find myself by this time luckily enough in a place where I find interesting challenges and I can solve them. I'm ready for also other challenges, but I do enjoy what I do continuously. I don't have to like, oh no, another day at work, so horrible. Like, I love going to the office and working on things.
That's the best.
And doesn't mean I wouldn't maybe mind doing something at high level of complexity, but also I don't mind just working. Like, I'm not like, oh, I want to like make $1 million or 10 million there, like the F you money.
Unicorns.
And then be like, do nothing and just like chill. And like, no, I probably will be doing I'll be building something one way or another. So it's fine.
Cool, man. I really enjoyed this conversation, kind of an insight in your mind, discussing what it means to be senior engineer, as well as this little topic of LeetCode, which I always think is interesting. Is there anything you still want to share before we round off?
No.
I always throw this curveball, don't worry.
I struggle with this question. It's also like, what do you want to share? Yeah. No, I think I'm good, thank you. But I really enjoyed our chat as well. It was very nice. And thank you for inviting me on.
Cool, man. Thank you as well. Then I'm going to round it off. Check out Ilya's socials in the description below. Reach out to him, let him know you came from our show. And with that being said, thanks again for listening. We'll see you on the next one.